Discursive practices, especially for the Indian context, are very important. It's kind of an interesting question to think about what super hyper localized art scenes can do. And I think as a critic, for me, it's been about pulling that context. And Trishla, the director of TIFA, has also, spearheaded that in many ways, which is, she ties things to the context. And TIFA is set in this beautiful Art Deco hotel. I mean, completely stunning building that otherwise, would have been put to ruin. And you're seeing details from a period in time in architecture that you rarely get to see, not only in the city, but in India itself. Let's make process visible. But what India needs is critical discourse. As a young Indian population, we need to realize that our history is at risk and these narratives are at risk. Then we need to move away from old conventions. And old conventions have shown us that sentimentality can be effective but surface, or that literalness can be easy to digest in a material form but not delve any deeper. And these are the kinds of conversations I've been having on a routine basis with each of the residents at Artel this year.
So nowadays, life is moving so fast. Not only life, the world is moving so fast. And especially with communications and the internet coming, distances and objects have been literally removed out of our path. So everything seems to me so transient that I don't know if we can really define the present moment clearly anymore. So through my work, I want to just look back at the past through objects. I feel we need to hold on to these objects because, there may be lessons and ideas that we need to still draw from them and not forget them back on the way. And I want to see what are we giving up? When I was talking to Skye, I was trying to understand why is this belonging so important and what is this relationship giving to me, So thinking upon that, I realized that even objects have values and properties and which we imbibe over the years because we keep looking at them, interacting with them, so that interaction is not an empty interaction. This residency, I want to talk about my relationship with objects, and I want people to think about their relationship with objects they have grown up with. Different things like time, how the object has changed, that process of change, and how I have changed. So all these topics I want to weave my way through. So I have been working with material, very tactile, very visual kind of language, and I feel Ubik is doing the same thing but in a different way. He loves playing with material, his work is more playful, and he loves to explore material, which also I like to do. So I think I would like to see what his take on it is.
Coming to TIFA and working out of TIFA, I was particularly interested in pushing red oxide as a material as much as further, as opposed to working with found objects, which is mostly what my practice is about. So essentially what I'm trying to do in a sense is manipulate red oxide to take over the form into which it's poured into. And I like the durational element of it. When people come for the open day, they're going to see it in almost a semi-liquid state, but they'll never get to see the solidified state. And one of the works in working gesture is me going over and over again, screen printing on a blank screen with red oxide over and over again with paper. And the idea of just doing that and damaging the screen and pushing the screen to the limit, the blank screen gives me an image which almost acts as an archival of just that one scoop of red oxide coming through. And I think that one piece kind of ties up everything else in that installation. So yeah. Another artist I'm really excited in this residency and the kind of work he's making is Krister. What I particularly like about his work, especially for the residency, is the fact that he is planning to reanimate a dead object. And I really like that because my practice is almost the opposite. I try and preserve the dead object, but he's in some ways reanimating it, which I found quite interesting.
I think, so I do make a lot of kinetic work, and the reason I do that is because I'm really interested in the gesture. One of the things I've been thinking about is how cities around the world are all starting to look the same, and how now when you go to cities across the globe, you can have an uncannily similar experience. The thing that makes cities distinct at this point is really their histories, and so the future of a city and making it a unique place is really tied to its history. I started thinking about all the different objects in the space, and specifically the furniture, to think about their histories or imagined history. I started thinking about in particular were some of the vinyl furniture and how it looked a bit like, they looked like animals, like the couches and the chairs and so forth. Okay, so the piece that I've been working on here in particular is about sort of creating this alternate timeline or alternate history of this object, and sort of not whimsical per se, but giving it sort of this, giving it a kind of sentience that allows it to live its own life. This is more about speaking to the building itself, not so much about myself. But I think for someone who is also really focused on thinking about alternate histories, you should probably also talk to Jagrut.
Being here in this building, which is like which was made in 1940s, around 1940s, kind of, it gives you that sense of grounding to the history. I have done 2 projects. One is called Narad, and one is called The Philosopher's Wasps. So it's based on this person who lived here in 1940s, and he was an alchemist who found a way to produce gold through wasps. And then he realizes that it's you have to give it to the world. The gold is, let's make golden structures, let's make golden walls, let's make golden bridges, why not? And that's what drew him to do the walls of Tifa as gold, because this is where he was. This was his studio, because everything is through our perspective. It's human beings who have kind of idea about history. We have the consciousness to understand history, and that's why we always place ourselves in somewhere in history and somewhere in the timeline of history. And that's where I see Saubiya's work kind of doing that in a way. It erases history, it erases time, and that's very fascinating.
What I understand of futures of past is that, like I understand it as an experience of a moment where, one's past, present, and the idea of future sort of, fuse together in a moment. And I think that's exactly what's happening in my works as well. So I'm using some family photographs of visits to various places of pilgrimage as a starting point. I chose this site under construction because I think it resonated with the idea of transience, abandonment. I think Samantha's idea of portraying the self and through a language which almost takes you beyond it is what I connect with in her works.
My work in relation to futures of the past is quite spontaneous to the space and to the place I'm in. So a lot of my work is digital based and internet. I'm very interested in kind of non-linear time and multiple narratives and creating different stories through different kind of GIFs and films, and sometimes I do that through installation. So I guess the futures of the past theme really interested me because it gave me a space where I could think about that in a different context. Similarly to Jhouyu, who also works in that way, I find really inspiring as well.
So it's a really interesting thing for me because I do about currency, I research about currency at my art project for a long time. I combine these 2 things. So this time I publish my new 500, and I combine a lot of like nuclear patterns inside. And in the exhibition and the open day, I exchange my money to audience. So audience need to use 500 to exchange my 500s. Like kind of body reaction. So this time, why I want to do this kind of performance here, why I combine yoga with Tai Chi, with a little bit like Taekwondo inside my performance, because those three things, those three kind of body is the really different way you can control your body. I'm happy to see what Riya will do. Another performance in this residency, how you will show in her work.
Personally, for me, I think movement is the most primitive experience of life. As kids, we don't use words and form big sentences to tell our mother that we want to eat now or we want to whatever. So we use gestures or we use expressions. So maybe that is something that I've kind of fixed onto. There's also a musician who's experimenting with the tools on site, with the tools available on site. So he's using hammer, chisel and other beer bottles and every other thing available on site. Finally, after 1 month, I've come up with 2 site-specific work. One is called Pause and Breathe, and which is on those 2 bathtubs kept there. And the other one is under construction, which is this site right over here, making a dead space alive. So how in Pune and almost in all the urban cities nowadays, there's this deconstruction of buildings happening, and like how bringing down the old version of an architecture and making it a completely new space. I'm actually interested in the process of deconstruction. Purane se naya kaise ban raha hai, the process of that and what goes through that.
The definition of the futures or past is very interesting problem for me. I think it is a good opportunity to stimulate my aesthetic thinking once again. Prior to the past, present, the future, I decided to contemplate the concept of time and try to express past of the past. India and especially Pune gave me a lot of inspiration as an artist. In addition, I was able to put various images of Pune in my film.
Thank you.
It is a great honor and joy to be a director of photography. I wish it was some sort of stimulus. Time is non-linear, and I want my image to be analyzed non-linearly. Yeah, because everyone think the time is linear, like a past, present, future. So yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But it's comfortable to use the time or think the time, but I don't think that is time.